Top 5 dirty lies about DUIs in Indiana. Dirty lie number 1, the breath test is accurate. Now I can show you studies that the breath test is not accurate based on if you're a man or a woman, depending on your body temperature, depending on the hematocrit levels of your blood. There's so many studies I can show you why the breath test is not accurate. But I think it's more telling that the Department of Toxicology, the organization in Indiana that monitors, maintains, and runs the breath tests in Indiana, even admits the breath test is not 100% accurate. Here is a certification of weights and measures of the BAC breathalyzer here in Indiana. And contrary to what so many judges and prosecutors believe, this machine is not perfect. You can see at a 0.08 is actually going to be either a 0.077 or even as high as a 0.083. So there's a range. You're probably thinking, well, Mark, how does that help me? I don't want them to think I'm more intoxicated. But the law in Indiana is if there's two reasonable interpretations of evidence, and one points to guilt and one points to innocence, the jury or trier of fact, the judge, must always choose the one that points to innocence. So this is absolutely huge, and don't even for 1 minute think that a breath test is 100% accurate. There's no way to fight the breath test. Breath test is an instrument. And this margin of error, that is assuming the breath test was done 100% correct. A lot of these officers are doing DUI task force as overtime after they've worked their normal shift. People make mistakes all the time. If the breath test is not administered in the exact way it's supposed to be administered, it's kicked out completely. So don't even for a minute think that the breath test is 100% accurate, because it's not. It's an instrument. And instruments are never 100% accurate. There's always a range. Dirty lie number 2, you have to do the field sobriety test. No, absolutely not. Now, some people consider the breath test a field sobriety test. Some officers even think that. Now, if you don't do the breath test, there's going to be significant license consequences. But we're not talking about the breath test. We're talking about the eye test. We're talking about standing on one leg. We're talking about going down 9 steps and walking back. Those tests are not mandatory. Those are tests for the officers to try to see if a person is intoxicated. But there's no penalty for not doing them. Yeah, some officers will get upset with you. What do you mean you won't do these tests? That must mean you're drunk. No, I just don't want to do tests. I don't want to provide more evidence for you to try to use against me. And these tests are not fair in any way, shape, or form. These officers ask you to do these tests. They give you some instructions, but they don't tell you what they're grading you on. Now, I've been to college and law school, even went to high school, right? It's not fair. If you don't know what you're being tested on, how can you possibly expect it to pass? Now, the eye test, that's called the horizontal gaze nystagmus. They're trying to move their pen or whatever else they have back and forth to try to see involuntary jerking of the eyes, because at the officer academy, they've been told that nystagmus, the involuntary jerking of the eyes, will let them know if someone's intoxicated. That's absolute garbage. Go talk to a friend that's a nurse. Go talk to a friend that's a doctor and ask them, doctor or nurse, would you ever use a wiggling of eye or jerking of eye to determine if someone's intoxicated? They would laugh at you because they don't do that. There are at least 40 known causes for nystagmus, the jerking of the eye. Albinoism, having a head injury. Alcohol is on there, but so is Lyme disease, glaucoma. There's so many reasons why a person's eyes might be jerking, and alcohol is only one of the 40. And it's not a very good test. That's why hospitals, doctors, nurses don't do it. Now, the walk and turn and one leg stand, well, if you have a head injury, well, guess what? You may not be passing that. If you have any kind of balance issues, you may not be passing that. The training that the officers go to, they even said if you're over the age of 65 or significantly overweight, yeah, probably not very accurate. But how about knee issues, back issues, any type of issues where you're not able to stand on one leg, where officers looking for things they're not even going to tell you about, can affect that. So don't do the field sobriety test. Now, don't be a jerk about it, but there's no benefit to anyone except the police and the prosecutor for a person doing the field sobriety test. And by law, there's no penalty for not doing the standardized field sobriety test. Dirty lie number 3. can't be charged the DUI if you're not driving. Man, I wish that was the case. But people call this office all the time. Mark, I was parked. Mark, I was pulled over to the side of the road. I wasn't driving. I need you to get this case dismissed. Well, I'm going to do my absolute best to get every case dismissed, but being an actual driving the vehicle is not necessarily required for a DUI in Indiana. Sounds kind of crazy, right? Indiana requires operation, being in physical control of a vehicle. Now, at first blush, well, that's not fair, Mark. How can I possibly get charged, convicted of a DUI if I wasn't driving? I agree at first it doesn't seem fair, but then think it through. People that are in accidents, well, when the officers get there, they're not technically driving anymore, and they're still charged with DUI. Now, we get cases all the time. People, for some reason, let them go through drive-throughs, a lot of Taco Bell. Go through drive-through, they fall asleep in the drive-through. Technically, they're not driving, but they are in control of that vehicle. We have other people that pull over to the side of the road, and they're trying to do the right thing, and an officer comes up, and some counties, they don't care if you're trying to do the right thing. They care about getting those DUI arrests. But being on the side of the road, and the officer can say, well, I drove by this area earlier, and they weren't here. And if they can try to show that operation within 3 hours of when they get the blood or breath, Indiana law does allow the state to say, hey, they're intoxicated as long as the blood or breath comes out of their body within 3 hours of when they actually operated the vehicle. So it makes it a lot harder for the state of Indiana to prove someone was intoxicated. Dirty lie number 4, only alcohol can lead to DUI charges. Unfortunately, that's not true. In Indiana, intoxication is defined by statute as being under the influence of alcohol, drugs, legal or illegal, or any combination of drugs and alcohol. So it doesn't matter, well, I don't have any alcohol, Mark, can't charge me a DUI. That is not the case here in Indiana. Most states are as well. The real issue that we have with this, and I see it just upsets me greatly, is people go to Vegas or they go to Illinois or they go to other states, Michigan, where marijuana is legal, and they have a gummy, they have fun with their friends, they're doing something that's 100% legal where they're at, and they come back to Indiana, and for one reason or another, their blood's being drawn, and all of a sudden they have metabolite of marijuana in their blood. It's not active. No one is saying that they were actively high at that point. But since marijuana takes a long time to leave a person's system, technically in Indiana, having the metabolite of marijuana, even though you're not high, even though you smoked or ate an edible 2 weeks ago, is still a DUI. And that is something that particularly irritates me, that you can be in trouble in Indiana for doing something that's legal in a different state. Dirty lie number 5, you can't fight a DUI. Man, that is the saying of loser attorneys throughout the state of Indiana. Now, attorneys love to get DUI cases. They just love it because typically a person charged with DUI is a normal human being. I'm not saying you're not extraordinary if you're watching this video, if you're charged with DUI, but you're not someone out there trying to get in trouble. Nobody ever starts their night off saying, I can't wait to get a DUI. This is going to be fantastic. That's just not how they happen. But DUIs happen to normal, everyday people, and they're just decent folk for the most part. And so many attorneys just love getting DUI cases, but they don't want to fight DUI case. They don't want to do anything other than walk their client up there and be what I call a dump truck lawyer. I need that plea agreement. I'm going to sign it real quick. But there's so many ways to fight a DUI. Number 1, operating a vehicle while intoxicated. Those are the 4 elements of a DUI. Attack the heck out of those elements. Just attack them. Were they operating? Are you sure? Were they sleeping in the car? Were they not sleeping in the car? Were they out of the field? Vehicle. How can we prove that that vehicle was not disabled? If you found it and didn't see it moving, well, a disabled vehicle is not a vehicle under Indiana law. Sounds weird, right? But that's true. While. If you find somebody who was drunk and then you see a vehicle somewhere else, well, you still have to show they were operating a vehicle while intoxicated. Typically, that becomes an issue when somebody pulls over at the side of the road. If someone drives after drinking alcohol, that's not illegal, and they pull over because they feel themselves becoming intoxicated, well, that's a sign of sober thinking. That's good judgment. You pulled over before you're intoxicated. Show me that they were intoxicated when they actually drove the vehicle, when they pulled over. Show me how. I don't know how they're going to do that, but they can more than welcome to try. And then intoxication. Now, obviously, blood or breath comes into this, but absent a blood or breath result, Intoxication looks like a lot of different things. You could be in a diabetic episode and you could have a lot of the same symptoms as someone that's intoxicated. You could have a head injury. You can't walk in a straight line or just hold one leg in the air, and you're going to have involuntary nystagmus if you have a head injury. That's one of the 40 that's accepted. There's so many ways a person can fight a DUI. Now, regarding a blood or breath test, prove to me it was done correct. That's your job, state, not my job. Prove to me the blood test wasn't expired. Prove to me that it was done under physician's protocol, which is required. Oh, for the breath test, show me the video that the officer did it correctly. Is there a checklist? I want to see the ECIR2 data, which is basically the homework of the breath test that shows an officer did what they're supposed to do. But there are so many ways to fight a DUI, and the reason why this can't fight a DUI is a dirty lie of DUI defense in Indiana is because so many attorneys have no interest in fighting a DUI. They simply want to take their client's money and then walk them to the courthouse and have them sign a plea and be done with it. So those are the 5 dirty lies of DUIs in Indiana. If you have any questions about DUI defense in Indiana, give me a call, 317-632-3642. I will talk about DUI defense all day. This is something I'm passionate about. And this is my career. I love it. But no matter what, the most important thing is to always plead the fifth.